Oh, thank you. What number is that there? 18? 8. 19. Oh, there we go. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Girivaradhari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Rajajanarandana Yashodanandana Rajajanarandana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Girivaradhari Jamuna Vanachari Jamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hey. Naya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pariraja Acharya Asto Tarasati Śrīmad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Grantaraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki Nitai Gora Premanandi. Oh glories to the assembled devotees. Oh glories to the assembled devotees. Oh glories to the assembled devotees. Oh glories to C.C. Guru and Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Santa Swami Benijam Prabhu Chanamarena Mameshwara Krishna Santa Swami Bhaktivedanta Swami Chanamarena Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Vani Bacharya Vani Pasha Chaji Satarane. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vasudevaya. Reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 13, Rahuguna converses with Bharata. Text number 19. Ata katanchit sa vimukta apadaha punascha sartham pravasacharindama advanyamushmin ajaya niveshito Brahmanjanodyapi na veda kaschana Atakatanchit savimukta apadaha Punascha sartam pravasacharindama Advanyamushmin ajaya niveshito Brahmanjanodyapi na veda kaschana Atakatanchit savimukta apada Punascha sartam pravasacharindama Advanyamushmin ajaya niveshito Brahmanjanodyapi na veda kaschana Chit savimukta apada Punascha sartam pravasacharindama Advanyamushmin ajaya niveshito Brahmanjanodyapi na veda kaschana Atakatanchit savimukta apadaha Punascha sartam pravasacharindama Advanyamushmin ajaya niveshito Brahmanjanodyapi na veda kaschana. Ladies? Atakatanchit savimukta apada. Punasatam pravasacharim dhamma. Advanyamushmin ajayani veshito. Brahmanyanodhyapina vedakaschana. Atakatachit savimukta apadaha. Punascha sartam pravasacharim dhamma. Advanyamushmina jayani veshito. Brahmanjanodhyapina vedakaschana. Atakatanchit savimukta apadaha. Potascha sartam pravasacharinddhamma. Nina jayani veshito. Brahmanjanodhyapina vedakaschana. Atakatanchit savimukta apada. Sartam pravasacharinddhamma. Advanyamushmin ajayani veshito. Brahmanjanodhyapina vedakascha. Ataha. From this, katanchit, somehow, saha, he, vimuktaha, liberated, apadaha, from the danger, punacha, again, sa'artam, taking interest in that life, pravasati, begins, arimdama, O King, killer of the enemies, Advani, on the path of enjoyment, Amushmin, that, Ajaya, by the influence of the illusory energy, Niveshita, being absorbed, Brahman, travelling, Janaha, the conditioned soul, Adya api, even up to death, Naveda, does not understand, Kaschana, anything. A killer of enemies, Maharaj Rahugana, if the conditioned soul somehow or other gets out of his dangerous position, he again returns to his home to enjoy sex life. For that is the way of attachment. Thus, under the spell of the Lord's material energy, he continues to loiter in the forest of material existence. He does not discover his real interest even at the point of death. Purport. This is the way of material life. When one is captured by sexual attraction, he becomes implicated in so many ways and cannot understand the real aim of life. Therefore, Śrīmad Bhāgavatam 7.5.31 says, Nate vidu svarta gatim hi vishnum. Generally, people do not understand the ultimate goal of life. As stated in the Vedas, Om Tad Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam Sada Pasyanti Sarayoho. Those who are spiritually advanced simply look to the lotus feet of Vishnu. The conditioned soul, however, not being interested in reviving his relationship with Vishnu, becomes captivated by material activities and remains in everlasting bondage, being misled by so-called leaders. I should go into flight mode, shouldn't I? Om Jnanatimidandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurum Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahayam Dadati Svapadantikam Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Garim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Sri Gurum Dinatarinam. Krishna. Maharaj, Rahugana is being enlightened by Jad Bharata. And here he's describing the fate of the Jivatma and his efforts to enjoy in the forest of material enjoyment. And it's a graphic description. The way of conditioned life. Conditioned life. So, what's the basic instruction of the ABCs of spiritual life? What's the first instruction? Association. What kind of association? Devotee association. Yeah, I guess that's the first thing, right? Actually, the first thing is faith. Then comes devotee association. Now, what's the first instruction? What are the ABCs of spiritual life? The basic instructions. You're not the body. Tahinosmin yata dehe komaram jovanam jara. We're not the body. But what is everybody thinking? I am the body. Right? I am the body. And that's what's being described here by Jad Bharata, right? Naveda kaschana. Naveda kaschana is the last instruction in this verse. He doesn't know anything. In the forest of material enjoyment, he's been, in the previous verse, pursuing sense gratification and is being kicked like the donkey gets kicked by the she-ass. Things that you'll graphically see illustrated in Vrindavan. At least that's my experience. Never fully understood some of these analogies until I went to India. And, you hear the donkey. Eeyoo! Have you heard it? How many donkeys do you see walking around Albert Park? You never see a donkey. You never see a donkey. And so it doesn't really fully, hit home until you see a donkey in India making a lot of noise, especially after he's been kicked. He's been kicked by the she-ass. He's approaching the she-ass for some enjoyment, and she just whacks him in the face. Very graphic. And so, and then if that's not enough, then there's the diseases that one ultimately will fall victim to at the time of death. Right? And then it describes here, he becomes afraid of death, which is like the elephant in the back of the cave. Right? He falls victim to an incurable disease, which is like falling into a mountain cave. And at the back of the cave is what? Death. Right? Death. There was one gentleman of sorts, and this is an illustration of the desire for sense gratification. He was dying of cancer. One of the incurable disease, dying of cancer, young man. He would have been in his 40s. His family are devotees. And he was suffering. And the devotees were there chanting, and he whispered, while others weren't, he whispered to one of the devotees, "Can you get me a VB?" You probably don't know do you know what a VB is? Yeah, Victoria Bitter. It's a beer. Can you get me a beer? Right? So even suffering and about to die still wants sense gratification. Right? A graphic illustration. So, even in very difficult circumstances, still the desire for sense gratification is very, very strong, and it can override then the desire for enlightenment, for spiritual emancipation, for liberation. Which is mentioned here, this strong inclination for sense gratification. So even if he gets out of this dangerous position, the previous verse describes the dangerous condition. And in this verse it mentions, even if he gets out of that dangerous condition brought about by the sufferings that come before death, right? He again returns home to enjoy sex life. For that is the way of attachment. Right? Advani. Advani, that's the name of that family that's doing that mine up in Queensland, right? Huh? Advani. Adani. Oh, different. Similar. That's what I was thinking of when I saw that word. But here, what does it mean? Advani. On the path of enjoyment. Right? Everybody is performing activities that they hope, that they pray will lead to sense gratification, to enjoyment. Right? Very few people who engage in activities with the goal to suffer. This is the impetus, the drive of the living entity is to enjoy. Yet in the material world, there is no chance for enjoyment. Maybe a little bit. In the Bhagavatam it's described as the enjoyment that we get in the material world is similar or compared to the amount of enjoyment that a very thirsty person might experience when they're just given a drop of water. This is our enjoyment in the material world, right? So imagine thirsty as anything, hot, struggling, almost about to die through lack of water, and they give you an eyedropper, and out of that eyedropper you get one drop of water. This is the enjoyment in material existence. Compared to the suffering. The example is given that the material body is actually a vehicle for this torture. Right? It has great opportunity for enjoyment, but most of the time it is a struggle for existence. If we think about our thumb, how much enjoyment can you get from your thumb? Huh? Hmm? Yeah. I see people, they... But then think about how much suffering you can inflict on somebody with their thumb. Huh? material world is designed in that way. Yet we still think, yes, I can enjoy. And so Jad Bharat's pointing this out to Maharaj Rahugana. Even in the most difficult of situations, brought to the point of death, understanding the futility of enjoyment in the material world, the desire for sense gratification is still so strong that it pulls us back to material existence. That's the warning here. Amushmin ajaya nivisheta Brahman. B-H-R-A-M-A-N is an interesting word. It looks like Brahman, but actually it's Brahman. Travelling. Puna, again. Oh, sorry, Janaha, the conditioned soul. Ajya api, even up to death. Naveda kaschana, does not understand anything. This is why the association of the devotees is so important. And we see that illustrated in this conversation between Maharaj Rahugana and Jad Bharata. One has to be reminded of the fallibility of material existence and the fallibility of material enjoyment. And this is why the Bhagavatam warns us that in the beginning of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, we're warned that, and it's one of the challenges of spiritual life is that when one pursues a life of austerity and a life of spiritual pursuits, then automatically spiritual progress will also bring material progress. Right? Spiritual practice will bring material well-being. Did you know that? If you make progress in your spiritual life, then automatically your material life will prosper. But then what's the problem with that? Material prosperity brings up then the desire to enjoy the material facility. So the Bhagavatam warns us, don't use material prosperity for sense gratification. Because otherwise one will then fall back into this ignorance. But be prepared for the challenges that material prosperity brings in our spiritual life especially. When one is a practitioner, a spiritual practitioner, a renunciate, then people value that, they desire that. So, people will give you money, for example. In our previous lives, how often would somebody walk up to you and give you money? Did that ever happen? Did it ever happen to you? Somebody just walks up and gives you money. It's like, if only they did. And then we have to be careful. Somebody gives us money, then what do we do with the money? Ooh. Money is a symbol of sense enjoyment, right? Sense gratification. So there's a temptation. Ooh, I can use this money. So these are obstacles on a path of spiritual practice. As one becomes wealthy, or one is given facilities, and then one has to be careful. This is why Maharaj Ajat Bharat is warning Maharaj Rahugana. Even a devotee can struggle hard to make spiritual progress, but then the material desires will come back again. They don't go away. Right? You know, the other day a gentleman came to me and he gave me $1,000. Right? Actually, it was $1,050 in $50 notes. He hadn't counted it properly. I counted it 3 times. And he said, "It's okay. You can have the extra $50." Huh? And he could have put that money in the donation box. Right? The devotees counting the donation box would have got a surprise. 21 $50 notes. Whoa! Look at that. But he wanted to give it to somebody. He's a devotee, and I guess he knew. It's always a good if you want to make friends with the temple, with the devotees, then give the money to the temple president. He said to me, I could just put it in the donation box. I said, yeah, sure, you can do that. But he wanted to give it to me. His mother had passed away just recently. So people will give us money. I remember one time Yaduba Prabhu was here, and he'd been given donations for the movie, the last movie that he did. And he was here. He was doing a fundraising tour, but I think he needed some clearances for the footage, some of the footage that he had. Because, I was looking just the other day at Prabhupada. One of the devotees was sharing footage of Srila Prabhupada taking prasadam in his room. Have you seen that? Prabhupada, there's a lot of footage. Because it was a professional film, a devotee, friend of the devotees, he was a professional filmmaker. And that's why there's so much footage of Srila Prabhupada in Melbourne, in the archives. Right? And Prabhupada was... So anyway, it was the last day before Yaduba was to return to America, I guess, or wherever, India, might have been India, I can't remember. And so we went to the bank. We went to the, I think it might have been Westpac in the city, in Collins Street, and they have these big... Anyway, he was depositing some funds or exchanging some dollars. And this Indian boy came up to me and he gave me a Bhagavad-Gita. He said, "This is for you." Bhagavad-Gita as it is. And I was thinking, I'm not going to take this Bhagavad-Gita. I don't need a Bhagavad-Gita. I already got so many Bhagavad-Gitas at home. And I'm reading the Bhagavad-Gita. You need the Bhagavad-Gita more than I need the Bhagavad-Gita. So I didn't want to accept it. I said, no, you should. And he told me, I'm going home. I'm going back to India. And I don't need, I want you to have the Bhagavad-Gita. So he had already won because I had the Bhagavad-Gita in my hand. He wasn't going to take it back. But so I ended up with the Bhagavad-Gita, and he left. And then I noticed just sticking out on the top of the Bhagavad-Gita, there was this line, and I opened it up, and there was money in the Bhagavad-Gita. That's what I'm saying, people give you money. Not only do they give you money, they give you the Bhagavad-Gita as well. This is it's a pious birth to have taken birth in the land of Bharatvarsha. That's very pious. That one understands the importance of spiritual life, or has the opportunity, because the Bhagavad-Gita was, Krishna chose to speak the Bhagavad-Gita in Bharatvarsha. So, and again, $50 notes, and it was $400. And I realised why he wasn't giving me the Bhagavad-Gita, he wanted me to take the money. Huh? So, Bhagavatam warns us, don't use material prosperity for anything more than just keeping body and soul together, right? In other words, keep our needs, our material needs simple at a minimum, right? Otherwise, in material existence, we'll want this, we'll want that, we'll want something else, and it's never ending, right? It's never ending. The needs, or not the needs, the wants of material existence. And so the Bhagavatam warns us right in the beginning of in the second chapter of the first canto of the Bhagavatam, we are warned. And Maharaj Rahugana is being given this guidance by Bharat Maharaj, Jad Bharat, not Bharat, Jad Bharat, that if we're addicted to pursuing, or if we're habituated, and we're conditioned souls. The tendency is, even after having escaped here, it mentions, Jad Bharat says, even if you've escaped the difficult situation of death, which means, liberation. And of course that comes automatically with the association of the devotees. But even in the association of the devotees, material inclinations, material desires may rise up. This is why, interesting, what was her name who was sitting there? Vaidi? How do you spell it? How do you spell her name? Bari. Bari. B-A-R-I. P. Pari. Oh, Pari. Like Pari Prashna or Parikrama. Huh? Pari. Yeah. She said association of devotees is the first lesson. In one sense, it's certainly good instruction. In the association of the devotees, and that's what's happening here. Maharaj Rahugana, he's the king. And of course with the king comes facility, material power, opulence, influence, sense gratification. Sense gratification. And so therefore confusion as to what is the purpose of life. And Prabhupada mentions here, the Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam Sada Pasyanti Sarayoho. The mentality or the mood of a devotee is to always look towards Lord Vishnu. Look towards Vaikuntha. This is really what this verse is about. Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam. The supreme abode is that abode of Lord Vishnu. And so in the association of materialistic people, the tendency is to pursue sense gratification in material existence. And there's no understanding of spiritual life. And so therefore the association of the devotees is so essential and so important. So that one will be reminded of the real purpose of life. That is to leave the material world and go to the spiritual domain, the spiritual realm. Yeah. Those who are spiritually advanced simply look to the lotus feet of Vishnu. And that's why Lord Chaitanya, when he was asked, what is the symptom of a Vaishnava, what was his instruction? Asat Sangachag e Vaishnav Achar. Right? The achar, the behaviour of a devotee is to avoid the association of the asat. Right? Because in the association of the asat, we'll remember the pursuit, or will be encouraged in the pursuit of sense gratification. But in the association of the devotees, we're reminded of the importance of the pursuance of the abode of Vaikuntha, or the abode of Lord Vishnu. But look to the lotus feet of... And when we're given money or when we're given facility for sense gratification, instead of utilising those facilities for material enjoyment, which is flickering anyway, temporary, adhyantavanta kuntaya na teshu ramate buddha. The intelligent don't pursue that which has a beginning and an end, because it'll be miserable. So that association, the association of Jad Bharat is the liberation of Maharaj Rahugana. So the association of the devotees is the source of our liberation, and why we value the association of the devotees so much. Because in the association of the devotees we're reminded, here's what the purpose of life is not to pursue the flickering and temporary happiness of material existence. Or, so, we have to pursue those things as is required for the maintenance of the body, the maintenance of the family. And so, we have responsibilities, apparently material responsibilities, but the Bhagavatam recommends keep it simple, right? Follow the KISS principle. Right? You know what the KISS principle is? Keep it simple, sadhu. Right? Keep it simple. Otherwise, if it becomes complicated, then it gets too hard. And the purpose of, the spiritual focus. And of course, that's why we have, on days like today, we are looking, Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam, we're looking at the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, or in this case, the lotus feet of Lord Ram. Right? The transcendental pursuits of, and even Lord Ram's pastimes are meant to teach us the futility of material life, even, right? The pain of separation. Of course, it's also, there's a number of levels of these instructions. Because also that separation of Sita and Ram is the height of spiritual experience, but also illustrates the pain of material existence when we're separated from our loved ones, which will inevitably we will be. I remember hearing the Ramayana as was it Hridayananda Maharaj who did a translation of the Ramayana? So I can remember somebody. Huh? Bhakti who? Oh, Bhakti Vikas. No, it wasn't Bhakti Vikas Maharaj. Why do I think? Pretty sure it was Hridayananda Maharaj. Anyway, whoever it was.
There was one by Prabhu also.
Is it? Anyway, I remember hearing these. It was a recitation, readings. And I just found the Ramayana so heart-rending. It was just so painful. How Sita was taken away from Lord Ram, the circumstance. Very painful. So material existence is painful. This is the lesson. And even spiritual life can be painful because we're still attached. We haven't fully advanced to the point of only wanting to hear about Radha and Krishna or Sita Ram, Hanuman, Lakshman, hearing the pastimes of the Lord. But why the association of the devotees is so important? Because we're engaged in that positive engagement and in hearing the messages of the Lord's pastimes, we're able to transcend then the attractions of the temporary distractions, if you like, of material existence. In the association of the devotees, we get an opportunity to hear about our transcendental position. Otherwise, in the association of the materialists, all it is to fall back into material existence. And in the association of the devotees, almost for us, it's an opportunity to fall into the march of progressive advancement in Krishna consciousness by regularly celebrating the Lord's pastimes. Jammakama cha me divyam, yo mam vetti tattvataha. So those who understand the appearance, paritranaya sadhunam, vinashaya chaduskritam. And of course we see that in the pastimes of Lord Ram, especially his triumph, his first of all the stealing of his wife, Sita, and the enviousness of Ravana. And a great battle, a big fight. Prabhupada was protesting how the devotees are sometimes criticised for not wanting to engage in material existence, right? That they're lazy men. Devotees are lazy men. They don't get into things and get out there and engage with the material energy and take up the fight. Just sit around, chant Hare Krishna and be lazy men. And Prabhupada says, no. Look at the two greatest stories of the greatest histories are the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. And what are they about? Big fights. Right? So devotees are not lazy men. They'll fight, and of course fight for Krishna, or in the Ramayana, fight for Lord Ram. So there's a lot of chivalry, valor, especially in Lord Ram's character, moral fortitude and determination. Even though Lord Ram was a mighty Kshatriya, influential, powerful, he took a vow, right? Eka Patni Brata. Right? So, the symbol of dharma, of religiosity, of dedication to dharma and religiosity. So we get this up, on a day like today, we get an opportunity to meditate on the pastimes of the Lord and his devotees, and make spiritual progress, make spiritual advancement, and understand the importance of association of the devotees, and the importance of avoiding the materialistic association, because materialistic association means, again, falling into the confusion of material existence, of putting material progress in front of making spiritual advancement. And we have to be careful, because we're living in a society, many of us also working in an environment where we're engaging with all sorts of people, especially for the householders, right? For the devotees who live in a temple, it's clear cut. But when we're living in society, and which we have to, devotees have to, we can't live in isolation of everybody. We have to live and work in the so-called inner material world, We have to maintain our consciousness in the spiritual world, right? Om Tat Vishnu Paramam Padam. And we have to understand the dangers of bad association. So, the occasions where we have a festival, and even on any day, we sit and hear the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam regularly, right? Śrīmatam Svakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana. Pious activities are performed by regularly hearing the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, and by that regular hearing of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, regular glorification of Krishna, we're enlightened. And the dangers of material existence are highlighted, which is what Jad Bharat's doing here for Maharaj Rahugana. And the importance of the celebrations of spiritual existence give us effectively the higher taste. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina. If you're embodied, then it is not unusual that there will also be material desires. These are some of the first basic instructions of the Bhagavad-Gita in the 2nd chapter. You're not the body, you're a spirit soul, but at the same time, because you have got a body and karma and so forth, then material desires will naturally also be present. But if one's able to get a higher taste from spiritual practice, then one's able to negate, or one's able to sublimate the desires for material enjoyment with the desires for spiritual enjoyment. Matschita matkata prana bodhayanta parasparam katayantascha mamnityam tusyanti cha ramanti cha. The devotees get pleasure and satisfaction by glorifying Krishna, especially on days like Ram Navami. There's austerity in spiritual life, so, fasting. Right? But then feasting. Right? This is the bit that I liked the most about the Hare Krishna movement. My friends went to a Govardhan Puja ceremony in the Adelaide Temple, and I was already vegetarian, and they came back with prasadam from the Govardhan Puja feast, and I had the 3 vegetarian cookbooks that were in Adelaide in 1978, and one of them was Indian. It was an Indian cookbook, and so I got to taste the samosas from that feast, and they were really good. I can still remember the samosa. So, there's austerities in spiritual life, but there's also enjoyment. So we perform austerities by fasting till today is only half-day fast, so it's nothing really. It's just don't have breakfast, basically. And then, and it's, these austerities are actually good because, we think, ooh, it's breakfast time. Like now we might be thinking, ooh, it's 9:05, it's breakfast time, right? But then we remember, oh, no, I can't have anything because we're fasting. But that reminds us of Krishna, reminds us of Lord Ram. So we have some austerity, but it is hardly anything. And then we get an opportunity to enjoy because on that feast I was also given a gulab jamun. A gulab jamun for me was such a shock. It's like, Well, I spat it out, I couldn't eat it. But what is that? Of course, now I can't eat gulab jamuns for other reasons, but I like gulab jamuns. Right? So, we have some austerities to be performed in our spiritual practice, but it is minor inconvenience. And even those austerities help us to remember Krishna. You know, our major austerity is to preach. If we need to perform austerities, some fasting, you know, chant 16 rounds, follow the principles, and, you know, so there's some minor inconvenience. It's not very difficult. And our major austerity is to preach. Harinam, and even that's is a source of great enthusiasm and inspiration and pleasure. The austerities that we need to perform to make spiritual advancement are quite simple, really. Chant 16 rounds, follow the regulated principles, you know, study the Bhagavatam, which in and of itself is a great pleasure, and preach. These are the austerities. And even Prabhupada made it very simple, right? 16 rounds, not 64. Right? Yeah, sometimes devotees having some difficulty or whatever, the devotees say, oh, you should chant 32 rounds or you should chant 64 rounds. So Prabhupada's actually recommended, don't do that. Can't do it anyway. Effectively, unless you're very advanced. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhaktivedanta Thakur, our Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, didn't encourage devotees to chant more than 16 rounds. Who's got time here to chant more than 16 rounds most days? Raise your hands. Who can do it even? Boy, most of the devotees are struggling just to chant 16 rounds, what to speak of 64. Right? Not recommended, actually. So it's pretty. We have simple austerities, but preach, do book distribution, do Harinam, distribute Prasadam. And of course, if you look at the externals of these things, you just see them. You know, I mentioned this the other day. One devotee told me that the ISKCON devotees are criticised. This was in Adelaide. And there are other Vaishnava groups, and they tell people, don't associate with the ISKCON devotees, right? Because if you do, they'll make you go and sell books, right? They'll make you go and sell books, as if selling books is just a mundane activity. Oh, you're just selling books. But actually, anybody who went to Dave Mrida Maharaj's classes in the gasworks? Did you go? What did he say about selling books? What did Prabhupada say about selling books? Yeah, Nikunja Yuno Ratikali Siddhyai. Ya Yali Beer. What is it? Apekshaniya. Yes, this is the connection, or the distribution of a book is synonymous with the introduction of the living entity to the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. Right? This is effectively what it is. Right? And so it's not just selling a book, but if you look at it from a mundane perspective, right? It's a mundane perspective. It's just, he's just selling books. But if you look at it from the transcendental or the spiritual platform, the devotee is introducing people to Radha and Krishna. And so Prabhupada said, yes, this is the correct understanding of, So these are our activities. We've got to look at it from the spiritual perspective. Not from the externals, but from the internals. So we're lucky. We have a great opportunity. We're already doing it. We remember our relationship with Krishna, especially on these festival days. And that's why we stay in the association of the devotees and avoid the asatsanga tyag, because that association will push us into material pursuits, whereas we want to be looking to Vaikuntha, which is what Prabhupada's recommending here. And Jad Bharat's recommending to Maharaj Rahugana. Does anybody have any comments or questions on any of these points? Any thoughts? Victoria Bitter.
Yeah.
Yes.
What I realized was it's sort of your attachment, material attachments sometimes are, you don't realize. You think you're advancing spiritually, but that's always there. And when you mentioned about that baby example, it's like, even we do that as well. We sort of want to have something to drink.
A drink.
Something we want to enjoy a little bit,
Yep.
and to relax a bit. But ultimately, that is material enjoyment. So that was a quite thought-provoking statement for me.
What's your realization?
So my realization is to be more vigilant and careful in terms of and my devotion, and not being attracted to material enjoyments.
That's nice. Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Good. Thank you. Anything else? Yes. I could never understand why people would drink beer. It tastes terrible. Why would you do that? Huh? And then you think you're having fun, and you're just behaving like an idiot. Like an ass. They drink and then they go out and make a lot of noise. Shut up, you ass. You're making a fool of yourself. Huh? And he's thinking, oh, I'm having a great time. In the meantime, he's just falling in the gutter. Right? Then he wakes up the next day and he says, I had a fantastic time last night. I can't remember anything I did. So this is real foolishness, isn't it? The amount of pleasure that you have is determined by how much you can't remember. This is real. Yeah. Well, the irony of that situation was that that gentleman's family were all devotees and he wasn't very much. So it was quite a struggle for him. And yet the devotees were determined to make him remember Krishna at the time of death. That was a bit much for him. That's why he wanted a beer. He wanted to forget. Hare Krishna. But, yeah. Okay. Grantharaj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhaktivedanta ki jai. Are you going to school today? Huh?